if we're going live here. I think I want to change my background.
I don't even know how to change my background.
You're
I
fine. And really, for that matter, I am too. I'm leaving it alone.
okay.
Okay. We are live on YouTube. Okay, so we're live. So I'm going to share this across social media. Okay, let me share this on social media right now. I'm excited. Um, let me see. Okay. So let me go on Facebook. Let me go on LinkedIn and post that we are live. Okay, let me see. How can I do this?
I can offer you moral support while you figure it out because listen, I'm on here to talk about economic development, not tech support. um
Exactly.
I would help if I could, but it's not my area of expertise.
No, you're good. You are good. Um, I'm about to post this on LinkedIn, and then we can jump into this very important conversation that I'm extremely excited about because yeah, like we need to know how to finish the year strong with doing business with the government. So I am very excited about this discussion. And yeah, let me just share my YouTube link, economic development. Economic development. No, I'm going to say doing business with the government.
We do have a hashtag. Hashtag is econ dev for
Econ
short.
dev. Okay.
Instead of economic development, we can
I
shorten it
love it.
to econ dev.
Okay. Duly noted. So I just posted my econ dev hashtag. I'm gonna share this across pages, and once I finish sharing here, there's only one other place I'm gonna share, which is Instagram, and then we'll for sure get started.
You on all the platforms. I love this. Is
Girl,
there
it's a lot. It's overwhelming.
is there anything you're not on? You said Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook,
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, yep.
Um,
Uh,
are you on
TikTok,
Yeah, TikTok.
um, and Twitter or X. But I know a lot of people jumped off of that platform, I think.
I'm still on there. Listen, don't
I
make
know.
fun
I
of me,
guess
but
we're traders.
I'm going down with the ship. You hear me?
I think we're traders, man. But honestly, I haven't read like the concerns that people have. Like I guess there were some changes that aren't very good.
hmm
Um, and so okay, so we're on LinkedIn, um, we're on Facebook. You know what? I don't like Instagram. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I don't like Instagram. I feel like that's going to be extra work trying to add this. But let me just do it. Let me see. Let me just go ahead and do this right now. Okay, so if you are if you are with us, because I'm not even looking at the screen right now, to see if we have any guests yet. But if you're with us, whether you're watching the replay or you're with us in real time, welcome. Very excited to have you here with us. Today is Wednesday, November 20th, approximately 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I am very excited to have a lovely, pleasant, incredibly intelligent guest on my first YouTube Live. And I don't know why she's acting like she doesn't know I'm talking about
Where's
her.
she at? Who you talking about?
That owl. Um, and so with that being said, Murriel Wally, thank you so much. I cannot think of a better person, honestly, to do this with. Like as this being like my first live on YouTube, seriously, I think that you are like the perfect person to help me kick this off. And like I mentioned to you before the camera started rolling or before this thing started recording, this is the first of many. And so I definitely can see us like having, honestly, we may get requests to have this conversation on an ongoing basis, because it is very important. We're talking about economic development. And if you are in business, then you know the importance of being a part of the stimulating the economy as small business owners. That's what we do. We hire more people than any other entity. So I think that's what the data says. You know what? I need to fact check that. But I think I read that somewhere that small business owners employ more people in local cities than any other, entity. So this is an extremely important discussion. And we're going to dive in. I'm literally just sharing this on Instagram. So as soon as I finish sharing on Instagram, we're going to dive in. And once more, I just want to say if you are watching this as a replay, if you are here with us, please drop a comment so that way we'll know that you're here with us. And I will check the comments routinely as Murriel is digging into this very important information. So, Murriel, as we are posting this on social media, getting the word out, could you just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. I think this is a really cool thing to be a part of. And I'm really passionate about what I do. I'm a very silly person, so I crack a lot of jokes, but I hope that my passion for economic and community development shines through. My background, I'm originally from Houston, Texas, but I also
Wow.
am a rural girl at heart. I spent about 10 years of my life in Arkansas, and my
Wow.
family, we have a farm out in Southwest Arkansas, a tree farm. So, little city, a little country. My education is all mostly in media. I have a degree in
Oh,
broadcast
wow.
journalism from the University of Arkansas. And I'm currently in something we're going to talk about a little later. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done. And it is a fellowship specifically for economic recovery and economic development. And that's something we'll touch on here in a little bit.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that introduction. I actually think I learned something I did not know about you. So that's always exciting. And for those of you who may not know who I am, I just realized I didn't even introduce myself. Okay. So social media stuff has been put out there. We are good. So let me introduce myself. My name is Maria Lloyd. I am the CEO and founder of a marketing firm named Opens Clicks Cash. I am also the author of a book titled Words Are Wealth. And so on this channel, I like to share content that will help small business owners reach their first six figures in business. So if that resonates with you, if that mission resonates with you, I want to invite you to go ahead and like this video, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, and make sure that you hit that notification bell. So that way, when I'm posting new content, when I'm going live with subject matter experts like Muriel, when I'm doing these things, you're getting the notification so that you can be a part of these discussions. Okay. So, with that being said, Muriel, I'm going to dive right in because the thing is, like, we are at the final stretch, right? It's 2024. We are in Q4 of 2024, almost about a week away from Black Friday. And so this time of the year, honestly, tends to be an extremely lucrative time of the year for a lot of small businesses, especially if you are in the econ space, I'm sorry, e-commerce space. But also, I mean, even if you are in the coaching space or something like this, that's the time in which a lot of small business owners offer like these blockbuster opportunities at a steep discount. And so I think, although this is a little different, right? We're not talking about e-commerce, we're not talking about necessarily coaching in the sense of like selling coaching packages to consumers, to individuals. We're talking about business. But I think that the timing of this conversation is so relevant because I am a huge advocate of instead of setting that resolution for January 1, 2025, everything that we are doing in this moment will ensure that we reach those goals as we're going into 2025. So I don't think we need to wait. I think that if you have some, which we all should as business owners, whatever goals that you have going into the new year, to be quite honest, the work needs to start right now. Don't wait until January 1. If you're not doing it now, if you're not planting the seeds, if you're not taking the necessary steps to go ahead and reach those goals for your business going into 2025 right now, honestly, it's not going to happen. So I just want to encourage everyone who is watching this, whether you're watching the replay or you're watching in real time, to go ahead and start putting the motion in now. So, like being a part of this discussion is an example of you putting that motion in play going into 2025. You can set yourself up for some really favorable results. Okay, so I'm off my soapbox. So now, Muriel, I actually want to pivot to you and just ask you, could you please kind of explain to those of us who are ignorant when it comes to economic development, what is economic development? And like, how is the success of economic development measured?
So you're definitely not ignorant. We all know a lot. It's just different areas of expertise. So
Fair.
there's a textbook definition of economic development that I can give you, but we really need to break it down, right? Because
Yeah.
you could Google that and find it. But the point of this conversation is that I want to give real life examples and talk about what economic development means in real time. So the textbook
Okay.
definition is like programs, policies, procedures, projects, and all plans that are utilized to leverage, improve, and uplift a community in terms of financial, community, and overall economic well being. And that looks like everything from job creation to infrastructure developments. Housing matters, right? Because, if you're going to recruit industry or have all these small businesses, everyone's got to have somewhere to live. And the
True.
infrastructure matters because we got to drive on our roads and everything all day to get to our small businesses. So economic development is an umbrella of so
Okay.
many different pieces. Yeah. And I feel like there's pieces that people don't even realize are in the economic development sphere. And I myself was an economic developer and didn't know it. Like I was a I was doing this work before I even knew what it was. So
Okay.
we could go as deep or as shallow as you want to on that definition, Maria.
No, no, I think that that perfectly sums it up. And just as a side note, I just want to shout out Jonathan and Corey. They are in the chat. They said, "What's up?" So again, thank you guys so much for being here with us, showing up early. Really appreciate you for that. So, okay, we fundamentally understand what economic development is. So, like, how is that measured? I mean, could you give us like a real life example of like economic development done the right way? Like, what does that look like?
So that is such an interesting question because I feel like there's not one right way because
Okay.
every community has a different need and a different niche, right? Um, so what economic development looks like in one city, even the city that borders it might have totally different needs. And so your question is specifically about metrics. And the way that I could answer that is it's both immeasurable and
Okay.
simple at the same time. So we could, if we wanted to, simply define economic development by way of numbers in terms of funding success or big boastful successful numbers in terms of how many jobs have been created in a community or how much dollars small businesses have brought in taxes or because taxes are the lifeblood of community. They fund those roads, those schools, those
Mm-hmm.
libraries.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you could measure your economic development success because by textbook definition, it is all the policies, procedures, and plans that push a community forward. Well, if a community's livelihood comes from small businesses and the small businesses are really successful, and then they fund lots of tax dollars that they pay for their businesses
Mm-hmm.
into those roads and those schools and those libraries, then we have a successful community, right? But what makes it so subjective is what is that number? And that's the impossible part, right? Is
Okay.
how much funding have we gotten to put into our roads and our schools and our libraries? That number is going to look so different because if you have a community of 5,000 people, 1,000 people, or 1 million, your numbers are astronomically different. And so
Yeah.
to specifically answer your question, economic development metrics are entirely subjective and there's no one size fits all answer, but I think everyone would agree, who works in this field and who lives in community and benefits from economic development, everybody can say that they want the same things. It just looks different how we get there. And therefore, the success is is pretty shared by definition,
Okay.
but it's sort of like, how do I say it? It's sort of like, okay, we all want to go to the mall, but everyone's going to run off to a different store. We,
Oh, I
we,
love that.
you know what I'm saying? We all want to define economic development success, but someone's going to say it's by how many jobs we created. Someone else is going to say it's by how much funding we've put into our schools. Someone else is going to say it's how many small businesses you have. Subjective.
Okay, wow. So again, thank you like for simplifying that for us. It I love that you said that it's like measurable and then immeasurable. I mean that was such a perfect way to kind of describe it because as you mentioned, one person's definition or expectation surrounding economic development may be completely different from someone else's. But fundamentally, what I'm gathering from this is that everyone's ultimate goal when it comes to economic development is to have a community that is rich of resources, right? So whether it's education, whether it's access to, like library, like those sorts of services, minimize crime, gainful employment, great housing, right? So, like you, again, such a great analogy. You mentioned, we could collectively agree we're going to the mall, but I may want to come to the mall by way of bike, which is going to take me a totally different direction from someone who's going to the mall by way of a car, someone who's going to the mall by way of a motorcycle, somebody who's going to the mall by way of foot. So that was wow, thank you so much for that. And there's another thing, and quick shout out to Olivia Henshaw. She mentioned you in the comments. She said, "Yay, Murriel." So Olivia, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you, thank you. So one thing that I've noticed, Murriel, is that we often hear politicians bring up this thing called public-private partnerships, right? And so fundamentally, when I hear that, I just make the assumption like, okay, maybe it's like public sector, like collaborating somehow with private entities. But honestly, I'm still not 100% sure if that's even accurate. So do you mind kind of walking us through like what is a public-private partnership? What is that?
Yeah, so I mean, my instinct is kind of be silly here and be like, it means whatever you want it to mean, Maria. But like, let me give you a sphere to work within for that because that's
Okay,
true. It really does mean whatever you want it to mean within a certain realm of what that looks like. So,
okay,
public-private partnerships are a very broad way that sound scarier than they are, sound more serious than they are. Sometimes a public-private partnership is a simple agreement between a public agency, right? Meaning something government funded, okay?
okay,
A public school or a city municipal agency or a public park. Those are public agencies and entities.
okay,
The private side is going to be private sector. Maybe you have a privately owned company, that meaning anything that has not been publicly traded yet. So a
okay,
small business or a private school, or maybe there's a big company in town, like a tech company, and where they all collide and collaborate in those public-private partnerships is between the agreement and figuring out how it's mutually beneficial to each party, and then also, of course, the most important party, the community. A really good example of a public-private partnership that I think everyone can kind of understand, and it also goes in a circular motion. So let's
okay,
say you have a privately owned tech or broadband company, right? So that's not funded with government money, it's privately owned, but then they're
okay,
able to collaborate with the city. And let's say at every single event, festival, career fair, etc., that the city has, they have an agreement in place that this broadband or tech company will be there with manpower, with liaisons who will provide information to the community and everyone who attends. They'll
mm-hmm,
explain things and be available to discuss broadband or how it works, their bill, the services, and community partnerships and potential ways that they can collab. A deeper level of that same community partnership would be if that company provided, maybe they provide laptops or some technical services and make that available to the public through the city. And let's say City Hall or the community centers and the parks that are owned by the city, they've allowed for that collaboration in that space. They've created an opportunity for that privately owned company to share knowledge and resources, and by way of funding they're able to obtain, those computers, those laptops. And then let's say that public school or that community program through the city, they are the beneficiaries of those laptops and that technical service. That's a private and public partnership that is mutually beneficial, because the private company may get the promotion and
Mm-hmm.
media and newspaper coverage of having provided those laptops. The city gets the cred for inventing the program and creating the space for the opportunity, or the city or the public school, whoever it is. And then in the circular motion, let's say those high school students or those public citizens who went to those programs or obtained those laptops, they come back around and eventually end up going through school systems and programs that allow them to later be hired by that same company that had a hand in their education, providing them
Oh,
the
wow.
laptops or the programs. It's all a circular motion and it's intertwined. And I wish I had a better word for this. I
Wow.
think it's overused jargon, but the term is, it's an ecosystem. Public private partnerships are a huge piece of the greater economic development ecosystem.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, that is actually really cool. And I can see how it's a reciprocal relationship, which I am here for reciprocity. Okay. I am a huge advocate of reciprocal partnerships. And so one thing that comes to mind to me, because as I was listening to you, I'm wondering like, is this kind of like a with the tech company that provided like the broadband education and the laptops and things like that, are those individuals or those business owners, are they being paid by the government, or is this kind of like an in-kind donation that they can write off? And then obviously their ROI will be, as you mentioned, in the, earned media. I don't even know if I'm using that term correctly, but it would be in like the exposure they're going to get in the community. It will be in the possibility of now landing clients as a result of being endorsed by the government, the local municipality. So I guess my question, just to kind of get more direct to my question, are these relationships always very transactional in the sense that someone is actually, like the government is actually paying small business owners, or is it more like, you get in partnership, you do an in-kind donation sort of situation, and then the goal is to get that ROI through the promotion, the endorsement from from the municipality, hopefully the local news as well, and you kind of earn your revenue through that way. I'm just curious.
No, I think you answered your own question, Maria. And
Okay.
to elaborate a little bit, I don't think it's always about the money piece. Sometimes,
Okay.
again, it's the manpower. Let's say that there's that company and they volunteer to take their employees out once a year and they clean up a park that's run down, right? And so there's no direct monetary relationship where the city paid the company to come clean. It was a volunteer thing. But it's what you said earlier, the ROI comes immeasurably, but measurably also
Mm-hmm.
through the media coverage, the community street cred, and the trust that is instilled by them seeing, hey, their company came out and cleaned up this city park. And now, the city maybe didn't have the manpower to do it. They didn't have the staff or the money to hire someone. But this company volunteered to clean the park. And now the citizens benefit because the park is clean and fixed up. The company benefits from the media exposure of doing good and being a solid community partner, and the city benefits because it's a project they needed to get to, but they couldn't because they didn't have the manpower or staff. So the ROI isn't necessarily defined through a specific number that's going to come through of, we saw 10, 20, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
100,000 new clients. I don't know these numbers. It depends, but you didn't see X amount of new clients come in as a direct result of this community partnership. But sometimes it's more intangible. Maybe over the next 6 months to a year, they notice an uptick following each different level of community partnership and community event. And sometimes it's
Okay.
not about this big ROI. We got so many more customers through this. It's simply about the trust in the community, or the fact that they're just excited to say, we did good and now this park can be used because my kids play at this park, or I take my dog to this park, or whatever it is. The ROI
Okay.
isn't necessarily in a direct number. Sometimes it's just about the community trust and the street cred. I hope that answers your question.
No, it definitely answers the question. What I was going to say is like, honestly, whenever I speak publicly, and just a quick shout out to Emmanuel Elliott, he's in the comments. He said hey to us. So thank you so much for being here with us, Emmanuel. And you all, if you're here in real time, please feel free to drop your questions. So as Murriel and I are talking, if there's anything that you feel like you need more clarity on, or you want her to go a little deeper, on any particular thing, please don't hesitate to drop that in the comments here. And again, thank you for being here. So what I was going to say, whenever I'm speaking publicly, one thing I always remind small business owners is that the one thing that your business needs on a consistent basis is attention. That's why
Mm-hmm.
we are on social media. That's why we do those sort of relationships, like a public private partnership with a local municipality. That's why we are sending emails, right? We need attention. I know that there's a saying, they always say nothing happens until there's a sale. And it's so true. If you're a small business owner, we know that the ultimate goal is conversions, but the way in which you get to the conversion, as you mentioned earlier, with regard to economic development, right? It may differ. And so I do think that this is a really great opportunity to get that attention, especially when you have the, like you mentioned, the street cred, you have the endorsement of
Mm-hmm.
your local municipality who's backing you and saying, hey, this is a legitimate business. We trust these individuals to host this program or to, use their technology. Like, that is a really great endorsement. You can actually take that, for those of you who are listening, you can take that endorsement, use that as leverage to shop yourself to other municipalities where you can get the check, right? So it doesn't mean that you're just going to stay in this perpetual state of in-kind donations or doing like volunteer stuff. What you do is you just leverage that opportunity, you leverage that exposure that you're going to get through that partnership, and then you go and shop yourself to other municipalities or even to other entities. So I mean, I see the value. For me, it's a very clear path to like revenue in a very measurable way. So thank you so much for explaining that, Marielle. So, my next question is with regard to the types of businesses that the government tends to partner with, right? So, honestly, as a service provider, so I look at my business, it's broken down into several kind of tiers, if you will, right? So I have the marketing firm, obviously, that I discussed in the very beginning, Opens Clicks Cash. We specialize in email marketing. But then I also have my personal brand where I am a public speaker and I go and discuss all things marketing, email marketing, copywriting, CRM marketing, automation, etc. And so when I think about the work that I do and the conversations that I have had with people that work for municipalities, they always say, "Oh, well, I don't really like we have a marketing department, so we don't really need somebody in marketing, right?" And so, but then on the other hand, I'll look up and I'll see that there is a marketing company that is working with a municipality, and I'm like, "Well, how did that happen?" So, could you
Mm-hmm.
kind of explain to us and give like real life examples? And by the way, I do see that we have a question in the chat. I promise you, Jonathan, I'll make sure that I ask your question for Muriel. But could you just kind of help us materialize the types of businesses that government wants to work with?
Yeah. So there's all kinds of businesses that government would want to work with. I can think of a handful of different examples that I have seen personally. So let's say the county or the city government agency has a ton of work that they need to get to, but their road work department or their marketing team is stretched thin. It doesn't mean communications team, whatever category it is stretched thin. That's when you can subcontract and come up with an
Mm,
agreement and have an MOU, right? A contract signed to outsource. to be able to get to those extra projects that your department can't get to, but the work still needs to be done. So you'll
Mm-hmm.
collaborate with your road department head or your communications department head or whoever it is, and you'll bring that asphalt company on or that marketing company on or whatever category it is, and you'll subcontract. And some of the examples of the types of services they need, I've seen, every city is going to need beautification. So, do they have
Yeah.
a landscaping company? Do they have budget for an interior designer, a decorator? What about the paint
Mm-hmm.
job that's done on the exterior of the building? So, painters, contractors, asphalt companies, anything from communication, landscapers. I've even seen them
Hmm.
contract out to hairstylists for special events. Some colleges and some programs in some cities will have temporary, contracts with hairstylists to get everyone ready for the staff photo shots and or the
Oh, wow.
photographer. Yeah, the photographer is contracted through the city to do the staff photo shoots. It all just depends on the size of the budget and the vibe of the community and the vibe of the municipal agency. I think there's a lot of times that you can't compare apples to oranges. So if you're in
Yeah.
a tiny town, right, with a population of 1,000, you don't have the same budget as a big city, right, with a population of 100,000 or 1,000,000. So those types of businesses are going to look different in each community, but there's a lot of consistency with those same categories that will always be needed to be subcontracted out. Your landscaping, your road departments, internal communications, things like that. So those are some examples of some businesses that people might consider throwing their hat in the ring for government contracts.
Okay, so I'm so happy that you brought up like hairstylists and things like that because when I sent an email earlier today to promote tonight's conversation, I specifically brought up that, I have heard of barbers being contracted by the government to cut, inmates' hair. And so it seems that there is a lot of opportunity around, it doesn't matter what kind of business it is, it definitely seems like the government has a need for it. Now, you brought up something, and I'm gonna pose this question after you answer it. I want to make sure I get back into the chat because I do see that we have more questions. Olivia asked a question. Shout out to Brittany Jenkins. She's in the chat. Thank you so much for being here, Brittany. So where do folks find these opportunities, right? I feel like it's almost like this secret club of sorts in which you've got to know somebody that knows somebody. And, that's kind of how you get the inroads into getting these government contracts or these opportunities, these public-private partnership opportunities. So, like,
Mhm.
could you kind of walk us through, like, where can someone actually find I guess it would be a request for a proposal. And if that's the case, I would
Mhm.
love for you to explain to us, like, where can we go and look for an RFP? Where can we
Mhm.
find this so that we can apply for the RFP and do the work?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up RFPs because that's something that I've been seeing more and more of as I dive deeper into economic development is that there are often calls for RFPs. There are often announcements about RFPs. And I know what you mean when you say it seems like it's this secret club because you wonder, you see the aftermath and you wonder how it came to be. You're like, how did that company get the contract with this organization, with this agency? And I think there's the easiest answer I can say is to stay plugged in and keep watch for all kinds of events that can put you into circles, connections, and opportunities that you may not have otherwise known about. And so
Hmm.
that means following like your city planning department on Facebook because they'll often host events that are certification classes and
Mm.
workshops that teach you how to work with that city and teach you how
Okay.
to get all the certifications and make sure that you have a checklist. They're going to go down a checklist and be like, you might be a great business, but do you have your credentials? Do you have your LLC, protecting you as a limited liability corporation?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have all of your affairs in order? There's a checklist. If you're a cosmetologist, You got your cosmetology license? You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
it'd be a lot of homegirls doing hair out the back room of their house. But I'm like, wait a minute, like, where'd you go to beauty school at? So
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
have to have all your certifications. And the way to connect with your city is to follow them on social media. Don't be
Okay.
afraid to make your public agency work for you. Walk into that
Okay.
office politely and ask them, what can I do to work with the city? Do you have any workshops or upcoming classes? What certifications are required? How can I put in an RFP? How can I put my hat in the ring? Communicate with them directly. And so I'll give you an example. I'm located in Jackson, Mississippi. The city of Jackson is actually hosting their 14th annual Working with the City event in the month of December. So I know about this only because I follow them on Facebook. And if you're not a Facebook
Mm.
person, you should still be able to get that information by way of media, events, newspapers, or walking into the office or calling your local why do I want to say congressman when the word is city alderman? But or
Okay.
your yes, your city alderman. And the easiest thing for me is to follow them on social. But if you're not a social, super social person or whatever, I would recommend those direct connections. And how you and I met, we went to Economic Development Week, mixers, networking events.
Yeah.
The city planning department and multiple government agencies, the EDAs, the Economic Development Authorities for the county, and the Chamber of Commerce were all there. So if you see a flyer about an upcoming event and there's going to be people from the city there talking about business certifications and economic development, you take your chance and you go up to them and you build a relationship and a connection, and you have business cards in hand, or that, the little scanny thingies they have now. What is it called? Where you scan
QR
your phone.
codes.
The
Oh,
QR code.
oh, okay, yes.
Um,
Or I think you're talking about the card thing, I think. Maybe.
you know what? It's all over my head. So yes to whatever you just said because it's probably right. But
Right,
yes,
right.
I hope that that answers your question. Is basically put yourself in rooms that you thought were exclusive circles just by showing up, just by keeping up with what's going on. Follow Eventbrite, follow Facebook, go check out bulletin boards at your library, and then show up at those events and get yourself in rooms that give you a chance to build connections and make sure that you find out that you have all the certifications you need to be able to do business with your city, your county, or your state.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So I hope that you all just caught those gems that Muriel just dropped. I know for a fact I'm going to go back and watch this clip, or this part in particular, because you really dropped a lot of gems, between like the piece about the chamber. So for those of you who don't know, I have a huge affinity for chambers of commerce. I have, I'm just deeply, deeply involved with chambers. I do a lot of speaking engagements at chambers of commerce, and just I didn't even with my like love for chambers and my, I'm frequently engaged with the chamber. I didn't even think about that. I'm like, duh, we've, co-hosted events with the local municipality, helping people understand how to do business. And so because I promised I was going to pause after this and address the chat, I'm going to put as a note to self, there was another point that you brought up that I want to make sure that we address, and I think it'll be important. And that was, you were talking about the certifications. So I'm just putting a note to self so that I don't forget what I want to ask you. And now I'm going to pivot over to the chat. So, first of all, Jonathan, thank you so much for your question. So, Jonathan asked, so this is a way for businesses, big and small, to strengthen their relationships with government agencies for getting contracts. So, he's basically asking, like, is this the inroad in? And if I'm not mistaken, and Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm wondering if you're saying, like, is this basically an inroads to maybe some of those huge federal contracts and things like that? So, Jonathan, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong with that. But Muriel, do you mind answering his question? And I think he's
Yeah, so I
referring to
haven't.
the public-private
Yeah,
partnership.
yeah.
Sorry.
So yes, and I would say it's gonna start small and build bigger. He's absolutely right. So first you build a relationship with your city, and it touches on what you mentioned earlier, Maria, about how maybe you get a contract with the city and they are paying you, subcontracting you to do whatever it is you do, lawn care or painting or communications or whatever it is, and they're subcontracting you and paying you. And so now you have that on your resume and to your name. Then you can try to go work with your county. And once you work with your county, now you can try to work with the region and or the state. And once you've got all of that to your name, you're right. If the next step would be to do federal contracts. My take on that though is I will say I am a federal contractor, so I will tell you this. They're very tedious processes, and you have to be in for the long haul and willing if
Mm.
you want to pursue those big state and federal contracts that absolutely pay off. As I know someone who's doing a state funded after school program and daycare, it asks so many,
Mm.
it's a business. The state will fund it for you and subsidize things for you, but you have to follow every single requirement, qualification, and criteria. You cross every T and dot every I. So if you're prepared to excel to that level, to answer your question, Jonathan, yes, these are steps you can take to get those contracts and to find those connections and build those relationships, because each level will have a partner and like, for example, for our program, we are each assigned a regional, federal resource and funding liaison for the region. So, like, just by knowing me, there's a partner I can reach out to who we can discuss federal contracts with and find your avenue. So, you
Mm.
just have to be prepared for how tedious some of these requirements can be and be willing to cross every T and dot every I if you do want to pursue that route. But yes, you can get there that way. I'm just letting you know, be ready. They specific.
Okay. No, thank you for that. And you said something I'm gonna tease real quick. So basically you're the plug because you were like, just by knowing me. No, but seriously, I mean that these are all facts. Like you are literally saying stuff that I
Yeah.
know just from my preliminary research, like this is spot on. And so Jonathan did affirm that that was in fact the question that he was asking. Like, is this kind of like a stair step to get to
Stair
those
step.
larger
That's the way to
contracts?
put
So
it.
okay, perfect. So
It's so funny.
excellent.
I love what you said about me being the plug. So instead of, the bootleg liquor man who's got, alcohol after hours in the back of his truck,
Exactly.
I have information about government resources and municipal support.
Absolutely. Hey, I mean,
Yes.
and we're going to get into that too in terms of how people can connect with you. Because
Mhm.
I think that's important. This one conversation, obviously, I know we could probably have this discussion for 2 and 3 hours easily, but I do want to respect your time. And, I'm trying to extract as much information as possible in this limited amount of time that you've been so generous to share with me. But I know that there are some folks who are here who will want to connect with you at a later time. So, with that being said, Jonathan, again, thank you for that question. I think that was an excellent question. Olivia asked, didn't you work on a mural in a city beautification project?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Shout out to Olivia, by the way. I know her very well. And she's a wonderful person who actually has a lot of knowledge that she has impressed upon me in my career. So, as far
Okay.
as
We're going to have to bring Olivia on.
yes, so that mural is a great example actually of a public private partnership, because there were some steps along the way where more partners were brought on, and we didn't even plan for it to happen that way. But we as a nonprofit commissioned a small business owner, an artist who her whole business is she drives around and paints murals. Even her car is a living mural. And we commissioned her as an artist to paint over another small business that had been graffitied. Well, in the
Wow.
process, the city had taken notice, and some of the murals that she did later on down the road, because it was a ripple effect, as soon as she did ours she did more, and the city stepped in to provide barriers, support, and even sometimes police presence, water, ladders, scaffolds, all types of things. And then she ended up getting donations from other small businesses for her paint and paint brushes, and it was all sort of like a ripple and spiral effect. So yes, that was a good example of something we did that wasn't intended to be a public private partnership. We just wanted to beautify the city,
Exactly.
cover graffiti, and we ended up getting the city to step in on their own accord to provide support for our artists by way of safety measures.
That is absolutely amazing. There was also something else that Olivia mentioned, and she said, I work at a tech company and work with public sector. The partnership donation angle can be top of the funnel marketing to drive awareness and also get you approved faster as a vendor. So again, first of all, thank you for that insight, Olivia. Great point. And it affirms what I was saying earlier in the conversation, how now I can fully grasp and understand how getting that backing from the local municipality opens up so many opportunities elsewhere, right? Because you can essentially use that as leverage to open up other doors, whether we're talking with other local business owners, whether we're talking with other municipalities, or even the same municipality down the road. They may have the funding, some set asides that, they would want to spend with your business. So, Olivia,
Yes.
thank you for sharing that. And so, Brittany Jenkins, she mentioned in the comments, and this is so cool. She said, a friend of mine just did makeup for the entire courthouse for their annual photos. So look at that.
See?
If you're a makeup artist, you can do business with the city.
Yes.
And she also mentioned follow your ideal clients, and that makes perfect sense. So really great insight, great questions in the chat. Again, I want to thank you all so much for being here in real time and engaging with Muriel and I. So as I mentioned early on, you were talking about the certifications and things like that. And, honestly, I have heard a lot of mixed reviews about the certifications, right? For some people, I've heard, oh, it's a very lengthy process and it's not necessary for you to have the certifications to do business with the city, the state, the feds, the county, etc. And so I want to hear from you as someone who is in this space, and highly knowledgeable and experienced in this space. Like, could you kind of give us the real on the certifications? Are they required? Do you have to have these certifications? And what certifications are we even talking about to do business with a municipality?
So I feel like the answer to so many of these questions has been it's subjective. Like I feel like I'm copping out by saying that, but it's true. And here's why. Sometimes the certification is not required. As Olivia mentioned earlier, working in like public sector, let's take
Mm-hmm.
universities, right? I
Mm-hmm.
have seen universities require no certifications or requirements at all. They just needed someone to take pictures, right, for their staff
Okay.
photo. Or
Yep.
they just were overwhelmed in their marketing department and brought on the local, it's a small town, population 5,000, they're a community college, but there's someone in the community who's really well known and is good at doing their own marketing as far as email marketing, social media presence. They can run your page for you, things like that. And so they're like, man, we have no idea how to do our social media page, even though that person isn't certified with the college or certified with the city or county or anything. They're trusted as a local community source and will earn the contract by street cred. So certifications are not always going to be necessary. It is
Okay.
subjective, again, but some cities will not do business with anyone who hasn't gone through their city certification program or their county certification program. There's also a lot of requirements, of course. If you're talking restaurants and catering, the city is going to have you cater all of their parties and events. Well, there's health code requirements. There's all sorts of, alcohol permitting, things of that sort. And so you have to
Mm,
have your state requirements in order and all of your legalities, as we discussed earlier. But I would say that it's going to depend on what agency you're working with about whether the certifications matter or not. As again, I mentioned, those public universities and community colleges in small towns are just like, okay, we know the guy. He's my cousin Bob's, Uncle Fred's dog's twin's best friend. So we're going to hire him. And like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know how small towns be. So small towns be like, well, that's my cousin. I know him. So we're going to hire him. And he gets the contract.
exactly. Wow, man. That is so insightful. And it makes sense. It definitely makes sense. What it does for me personally, it affirms why I keep hearing mixed reviews about these certifications, right? Because I have a client that has like the minority, I guess, and forgive me, you all, because I don't remember the name specifically, but there is one for like a minority-owned business. There's one for a woman-owned business. And so what she shared with me is that by having that certification, what it has done for her is that some of these government agencies or even just, privately owned businesses in the state of Mississippi in particular, have set asides for people who
Hmm.
have those certifications, right?
Hmm.
So if you got a 10% of your annual budget has to be allocated towards individuals that are falling in that, minority owned business category, that women owned business category. Well, I mean, obviously that does put you to some degree in a favorable position to land that contract. So,
Hmm.
like I said, I really appreciate you for clarifying that for me. I know that you mentioned like you feel like you've just been saying it's subjective, but like you said, I mean, that's real. That's
Hmm.
real. That's the
It is.
reality. And it explains why I keep getting mixed feedback about the certification. So thank you for clearing that up as well. I do want to make sure my dear friend, Jude, who is based out of London, shout out to Jude, love him so much. He actually asked some questions on LinkedIn. And I'm sure that he's not here because right now in the UK it is about 1:45 a.m. So
Mm.
I don't think Jude is going to be able to join us live, but I'm sure he will chime in later on and watch this video. So one of the questions that he asked is government agencies are known to have long payment cycles. What advice would you give businesses that win a government contract to manage payments so it doesn't mess with their cash flow? And that question is gold.
Yeah.
So, would you please kind of walk us through that? Thank you so much for that amazing question, Jude.
Yeah. So I hope I'm not being short-sighted with the advice that I give, but I feel like it's sort of like basic multitasking around your house. So the
Okay.
same way that you have a busy afternoon and you go start your laundry and your laundry is rolling, okay? You laid the foundation, right? That's the same way that you start planting seeds for how to get work done with a municipal agency or any government entity. You're going to start planting seeds, showing up at those networking mixers, working on public private partnerships or volunteer work you can do to build that trust and then have your name at the top of the pile later on. Building that foundation. And then go off and you work on obtaining capital in other areas. That way it doesn't mess with your cash flow. You set it and forget it. So now while my laundry's going, I came into my living room and I swept my floor, I wiped my counter, I called my best friend, I walked my dog, and then I came back and it was time to move my laundry along. I checked back on it. And then I'm going to go do the same thing while it's moved to the dryer. I'm starting dinner, I'm making my bed, I cleaned everything, and then I come back and it's still going, right? And then it's finally ready later on. But I accomplished all these other things off to the side while the laundry's still working. Set yourself up to where you've planted these seeds, and instead of just waiting on those payments to come in or that opportunity to come in, or maybe you got everything going and you're just waiting to be paid, the whole point is you did all the work up front and you started something, and the money's not going to come, the finished product's not going to come for longer than you'd like. But because you've already done the work and it's working on its own in the background, it's brewing, you go focus on other areas where you can earn your capital and your income and get some quick grabs, some other clients, some other projects, and also thinking outside the box of ways like, I didn't even think about that, but I could work over here and get a little bit of money. Like, I know people who are doing that. I've got a friend who started a business and the business is taking a long time to grow and she's not really
Yeah.
seeing money coming in from it, but she found other contract positions she can go do to earn cash flow. So that seems, I hope that's not short-sighted to say like just do other things, but really what else are you going to do if you're waiting to be paid? You can't sit stagnant and just keep blowing them up every day or twiddling your thumbs every day. Set it, forget it, and then go work on other things. And then when it comes in, you already had additional cash flow and now it's an added bonus.
That is sage advice, seriously. Because the funny thing is, it's really not funny. It really screwed me. But earlier this year, that kind of happened to me. I did some work that was federally funded, right? So it wasn't necessarily with a municipality, but nevertheless, it was a federally funded project. And this wasn't the first time I had done this work. And so in the past, no issues with payment. Well, some things changed.
Hmm.
And instead of getting the payment when I anticipated it, I didn't get it for almost 6 months later. So just
Sounds all right.
imagine I had
Mhm.
already allocated this money based on the deadline that I anticipated from the
Mhm.
start. I had already allocated this money towards things. So when that money didn't exist, it caused a major shock and upset in my company's cash flow because I'm like, wait a minute, like you guys said this and now it's that, and this is no bueno for me. And so, to your point, Muriel, that was a very tough lesson for me to learn this year is don't put all your eggs in one basket, even if you've done business with, a municipality before and it's been good business. You never know what could happen. Leadership can change, you know, new policy is coming into play and somebody is slow to implement or fast to implement. And your contract is just kind of, in the just kind of like what am I trying to say? It's just in the wind somewhere, right? And
Mhm.
so you've got to be prepared for that kind of stuff. And like I said, I had to learn that the very hard way this year because it completely threw off my cash flow and just caused a ripple effect of issues. And so I had to hurry up and pivot and
Mhm.
focus on other work to just stay afloat because of that situation. So you are absolutely spot on. And once again, thank you so much, Jude, for such an amazing question.
Mhm. It's
So
a
in
good
these
question.
final 10 minutes, I think one thing I would like for us to touch on, and I feel like we've already pretty much covered this, to be honest. So I think this maybe will just be a good way to summarize this amazing conversation that we've had. But could you kind of explain to us, like, what can we do as small business owners to make our business attractive to a government, entity or municipality, whatever? Like, what can we do to make ourselves attractive?
This comes full circle too and brings us right back to what I touched on, you touched on, and what Olivia mentioned about when you get that skin in the game, that street cred, because you have kept your community first. You've
Yeah,
already donated these laptops or done these things for free or shown up at all these events. So if you're at the city's constantly throwing career fairs and events and festivals, and you're always at everything, or the Chamber of Commerce. You show up at
yeah,
every event, and they're like, we keep seeing this business owner at everything. You're on their mind. And they know you've volunteered and donated things like goods or services. And so now you have built that street cred with them and you've promoted yourself because you've shown up at everything, you've donated and volunteered, you provided goods and services, and then also, again, with the media element, if you have a strong social media presence or you're in every photo at every community function, you're
yep.
on everyone's radar and you've promoted yourself. And that we talked about, you're going to see your ROI through that because you've attracted yourself to the city just by showing up at everything, going to all their certification classes, all their festivals, all their events. And you've also built the relationships around it with their friends, like the chambers, like the county, like planning and development districts, like EDAs, economic development authorities. If
Yep.
you attract yourself to their friends, so when there's conversation about who we should go with, make yourself the only possible option. That's how you make yourself attractive to city, local, state, and federal government, is by being so everywhere and so present and putting so much volunteerism and skin in the game that you've earned that street cred, that there's no question about who they should go with. And there should always be a fair process of, like, you get three bids or there's a vote on these three companies
Yeah.
and they pick you, but you should be a shoe-in because they're like, who are these other companies? We've only ever worked with this LLC and seen them at community events.
I love that. It, like you mentioned, it's such a perfect way to kind of summarize what we've been talking about. At the end of the day, you all, as small business owners, and I say this all the time, and I'll keep saying it over and over again, we have to make sure that we are getting attention on our business. Point blank, period. You need attention. So if that's through showing up to events like Muriel mentioned, make sure you show up to those events and you have your business cards on hand and you're making a lasting impression. I know one thing that I like to do when I show up for events like that, and Muriel, I think you can attest to this because when you and I met, I hope I did this. I feel like I did this with you, but I like to bring a few copies of my book. And when I meet someone who I think is pretty interesting and like a solid person, I'd like to gift them a copy of my book. I think it's just a great way to kind of leave a lasting impression. It's a little heavier than just your standard business card. And one thing I meant to mention, Maria, I just want to shout you out once again because when we met, like literally, we wanted to like see each other, I think that following weekend, and I was in South Africa. And then when I came back from South Africa, I was in like DC and then I was in New York. And then so it took us, I
Hmm.
would say what, a good 2 months to like finally
Hmm.
connect after that initial. So thank you so much for being so patient with me because honestly, that's kind of rare. And that's why I kept trying to make sure I text you here and there just to let you know, like, I did not forget about you. I'm literally just all over the place.
So what you
So
said earlier though about how like who do I work for? The federal government. I am used to bureaucracy and things taking 6 months. So I mean, I think even the federal government knows how slow they are. So I'm not dissing
exactly.
anybody when I say that. But yeah, no, I'm so used to things that are bureaucratic and take a long time, but a lot of times it's so worth it. So if the whole point of this conversation is, sometimes those contracts can really pay off big, then it's
Yeah,
worth it to have put all of those efforts in the beginning. And I think with you and I, we planted a seed in our business associate connection and our friendship to be able
absolutely.
to come back to conversations like this later because we knew we were going to be able to have a really deep discussion about business and government, but our schedules, we were doing this all the time. And so I'm thankful for this space and I'm thankful that you trusted me to share. And I'm appreciative of everyone who tuned in. This has been really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. This has been an amazing opportunity, a great conversation. The chat, I mean, shout out to you guys in the chat. Jonathan, Corey, Olivia, Brittany, Emmanuel, like again, thank you all so much for being here. You have no idea how much value that you've added to this conversation just by merely being here, asking amazing questions, engaging with us, sharing your own perspectives and insights. So once again, thank you so much for being here. And Jonathan left a comment saying that's an awesome idea, given your book. Thank you for that, Jonathan. Yeah, I mean, I find that it's a just, it's like we like to say in the South, it's a happy, it's like a gift. So I'm gifting you a copy of the book. And so with that being said, Muriel, I definitely don't want us to get off of this call or this conversation, whatever I'm trying to reference it as without you sharing how people can connect with
Mm,
you. Because I
mm,
know that folks got some questions and you are the plug. So, how can folks connect with you?
Okay. Oh, it's all backwards, but I have
Oh,
a
I
business
love
card
that.
here.
I love
Hit
that.
the
And I love
QR
it's the QR
code.
code.
Will the
Oh,
QR
I
code work?
love that. I'm sure it will. You know what? Let's try it. Let's try it in real time.
Okay.
Could
So
you
even
hold
if
your
the Q
card like straight up in the camera?
so
Perfect.
even
Okay.
even if the
Let's see.
QR code doesn't work, I can drop in
It
the
does
chat.
work.
It
It
worked.
works. Yes. Yeah. I
We
got
love
you right
this.
here. Let's see.
We
Where
love
is
to
it?
see this.
Got you right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's all blurred out. But yeah,
Okay.
this is excellent. Yeah.
Mhm,
So you all make sure you scan that QR code so that you can
mhm,
connect with Muriel. As you can see, she is absolutely a subject matter expert in this space. She knows exactly what she's talking about. She actually just got back from a conference for
mhm,
people with her expertise. Okay.
mhm.
So this is not someone who is just talking the talk. This is not someone who just looks at this as a job. She is actively in spaces, having conversations, learning new things all the time. And so, Muriel, it really is it's so humbling to have someone with your level of expertise join me on my first YouTube live. So
Ah!
again, thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been fantastic. Thank you so very much.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you. My email also is mwiley@economicrecoverycorps.org. And then, of course, check out the QR code to get more information about my program. And Maria, of course, thank you to you for hosting this space and for having me on.
All right, excellent. Sorry, I was just chatting, responding to Emmanuel. He said, "Thanks, Muriel and Maria, for an awesome live chat event." Once again, thank you all for engaging with us in the comments. Really, really amazing group of folks in the comments here. So with that being said, you all, if you've not subscribed to this channel, please, please, please subscribe to this channel. I do plan on doing more of these sorts of lives where I'm bringing in a subject matter expert, an amazing person like Murriel, where we can really dig deep and start getting to this money, okay? Because nothing happens until there's a sale. So if you are a small business owner, you definitely want to make sure that you subscribe to this YouTube channel because I'm going to do more of these. And yeah,
Yes.
just stay tuned, stay connected. Definitely stay connected with Muriel because, like she said, she's the
Yeah.
plug. And what were you gonna say, Muriel?
Oh, you know what we needed to do? I didn't talk more about the Economic Recovery Corps. There are
Let's do
actually
it.
65 of me across the nation. So, but they're all so different. We have fellows all over the country. It's a cool program. We can talk about it more
Go
on another
ahead.
occasion, or
No,
they can
no, no.
check
You
out
can
the
go
QR
ahead.
code. But no, so it's a Economic Recovery Corps is a fellowship housed under the EDA and the U.S. Department of Commerce. They had a highly competitive process and chose people and deployed them into areas that were particularly hit after COVID. And we're given a host organization on the ground who helps us execute specific projects. So that's anything from
Wow.
infrastructure, housing, public sector support, um, education, all things economic development. My specialty is, of course, small business and local government. So that's a quick overview of the Economic Recovery Corps. I know we had mentioned at the beginning we would talk about that, but for anyone who's like, where do you actually work? Who even are you? Like, I do have a job. I'm a contractor with the ERC, and I also have a great host organization, and I do freelance media on the side as well.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Pretty remarkable that it's 65 of you all in the entire nation. I mean, so this is, you know, when I hear that we're a nation of what, over 300 million people, and to know that there, that you 65 have been, you're one of 65 individuals who've been chosen to take on the task of helping municipalities and communities improve. That is really impressive. So I mean, kudos to you. I already knew that you were a bad woman. That's why we're on this call now. But I didn't know about the 65. Like that's pretty incredible that,
And we're different. We're all very different. So when I say there's 65 of
wow.
me, we got people in Hawaii, we got people speaking different languages, we got older fellows, younger fellows. We have all types of people in our program, and they're all amazing. And look into their projects too. On that QR code, you can hit the Meet the Fellows button on our website
Wow.
and look at all the different projects across the nation. It's very cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And once again, you all, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Marielle has been more than generous and gracious with her time. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Whether you are watching this as a recording or if you were here with us in real time, we already shouted you out. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to this channel because more content like this is coming. So I need you to make sure that you are subscribing so that way I can know, okay, this is what my people are looking for. So when you subscribe, when you comment, when you like, when you give me feedback, I don't mind constructive feedback. Please share all feedback, okay? It doesn't all have to be positive. Just share all your feedback, and I promise you, I will consider whatever it is that you share with me. So please do that in the comments. Please join these conversations. Like I said, this was the first YouTube live, but this is the first of many. So, Muriel, I am wishing you a lovely evening. I cannot wait for us to, hang out again in person. Looking forward to the next link up. And you all have a wonderful evening or day wherever you are. And thank you once more for joining us. So, Marielle, just give me a minute. Let me disconnect the YouTube live
Mhm.
stream, and then we can kind of debrief here. So let me disconnect this. Good night, everyone, or good morning. Oh, Jonathan said something else. They are the elites, empowered leaders, inspiring transformation and excellence. Oh,
Oh, wow.
Jonathan, are you a copywriter? I like that.
Yeah, Jonathan, you want to do some freelance on the side? Those were some words.
Right? Words are wealth, honey. I love it.
Mhm.
Okay, you all, let's stay connected. And I'm going to disconnect from this live. So let me do that now. Jonathan said, have a great night. Thank you. Thank you. And okay, so let's see.